Greg, and I'm sorry I don't have the name of your co-presenter, Greg. Welcome. I'm really fascinated by yours as well. This is just a feast for a research ethics geek like myself. So the floor is yours, Greg. Thank you again, Hayley. That was a lovely presentation. Greg.
Awesome. Thank you. Can I share my screen? Am I able to do that?
Yeah. Hayley, do you want to? Thank you, Hayley.
All right. Can people see that?
It's just about to come up. There it goes.
Awesome. All right. Just trying to get that to work. Okay. So this is Tegwin. This is everyone. I'm Greg. What I will do is I'll try and get through what we've planned to get through today in the space that we've got available. So look, before I begin, I did want to just introduce the other members of the team who couldn't be here today, pay my respects to them. So that includes Renee Williams. You'll hear a little bit about Renee through the course of our presentation today, and Professor Ray Marnie, who is based at CSIRO. So, and I'll get Tegwin to introduce herself when in just a second. But before I begin, in line with protocol, I did want to pay my respects to the traditional owners and custodians of the land where we meet, recognise the fact that we are on unceded country and countries and nations in this place we now call Australia, pay my respects to elders past and present, and pay my gratitude to all of the First Nations peoples of this continent that is now known as Australia for their caring for this space for modern Australians now. We represent a diverse group of First Nations on a continent nearly twice the size of Europe and equal to size to the United States of America. And we recognise also that we use the terms Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander to conveniently refer to groups of peoples representing approximately 250 nations across this ancient and wondrous nation or this wondrous continent pre-European colonisation. So I acknowledge that we use those terms conveniently. Now, just in terms of the structure for this morning, we're just going to go over background, aims and objectives, methods, results, and finally some recommendations, and we'll just give you a bit of an overview. Before I begin, I will just introduce myself as well. So I'm a Quandamooka man, descendant of the Noonuccal tribe of Stradbroke Island in Jerrabah, which is off the east coast of Brisbane, on the east coast of Australia. I also grew up in far north Queensland with the Kuku Yalanji and the Kuku Taipan people of the Cape. So that pointy bit of Australia in the middle of it, there's a little town called Laura, and I grew up there, blue-eyed, fair-haired, fair-skinned, barefoot in a very, very traditional space. And now,
Good, Greg.
Sorry.
Sorry, when someone gives their whakapapa in New Zealand, we tend to say kia ora and acknowledge that.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, Lindsay.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I work as now at CQ, Central Queensland University, based in Brisbane. I always like to say I work at CQ University, and I also work at the Queensland Aboriginal and Islander Health Council, based in Brisbane as well. But I work for community. So I'll get Tegwin to introduce herself as well.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Tegwin Howell. I grew up in Toowoomba, and obviously with a very Welsh name. I'm not Indigenous. I had the privilege of being the senior research officer on this project to work with Greg, Renee, and Ray. It was an interesting project, and I hope you're going to enjoy our presentation today.
Awesome. Thanks, Tegwin. So we will share a little bit about what this project is, what this project was, but really, so QAIC, for people that don't know, is the Queensland Aboriginal and Islander Health Council. It's the peak body for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community controlled health service sector in Queensland, which is essentially a conglomerate of primary health providers with the focus of being led by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities in their respective, local townships and so forth and communities. And they're generally accepted and recognised as the someone said I can see the current slides. I can't see my slides. Sorry. Choose a different tab from top of the screen. Okay.
Your slides are fine, Greg. Please carry on.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. So yes, so Quake is the peak body for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community control health service sector, which is essentially primary health providers, which are the complementary of the public hospital and health services we know of here in this state called Queensland Health. This piece of work arose out of Quake and its members deciding it was important to have a voice around self-determination, the realised self-determination sovereignty regarding research involving Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people of Queensland. Now, just so you know, Queensland doesn't currently have an Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander Human Research Ethics Committee. And as you know, in those states and jurisdictions in Australia where there are Aboriginal Human Research Ethics Committees, it's a crucial part of ensuring that values of the community are reflected in the research that involves those communities. At the time, the CEO, the Quake executive, Renee Williams, who I mentioned previously, asked the question about whether there was potential for establishment of a Human Research Ethics Committee in Queensland. We put a proposal forward to the Which Institute, which is Australia's only national research entity for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community and the community control sector, and they awarded funding to us to actually do this research, looking into the experience and preferences of the sector, but also the experience and preferences of human research ethics committees in Queensland. So in terms of aims for the project, it's a 2-year project. Really, we wanted to explore the strengths and limitations of existing HRECs in Queensland, the experience of our ARCHO sector in participating in research, and describe the way and identify ways to potentially strengthen research ethics governance by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and champions in this state. So the project was led by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander researchers. So as I said, myself, Renee and Ray. Ray's Aboriginal, I'm Aboriginal, and Renee is Torres Strait Islander. And so it was very much led by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people by a community control health peak body funded by the Luigi Institute as Australia's, national community control health research entity. So very much community driven. Now I'm just going to hand over to Tegwin, who's going to talk a little bit about methods.
Around it.
Yeah.
As Greg's given you a little bit of the background and mindful of time, the project, the goal was to engage with the community health organisations and the ethics committees. So what we did was the members were invited to participate in an online survey and also to participate in a workshop or a series of yarning circles if they so wished. These invitations were sent from the CEO of Quake to the CEOs of the ARCHOs, who had the opportunity to nominate somebody else if that was appropriate to be involved in the project. Ethics committees, it was based on the 30-odd NHMRC registered ethics committees that were in Queensland at the time. As that was progressing, one HREC closed, one only did animal research, and the reviewing HREC committee obviously did not participate due to conflict of interest. So invitations went from Greg and myself to all the chairs and the coordinators of all the remaining 27 ethics committees. Similarly, they were invited to participate in an anonymous survey and also to participate in yarding circles. And those had to be offered online for the ethics committees for various reasons, but it gave an opportunity for people to nominate who were the best people to attend. I'll now hand back to Greg to describe some of the interesting results that we got from these processes.
Awesome. So just in terms of some of the questions that we asked and how we split it up, just from a methods perspective in addition, there were 2 sections in each of the focus groups, whether it be face-to-face with the ARCHOs or online with the HRECs. The first set of questions really explored the experiences of the sector. In this case, this was about the ARCHOs. with a number of topics to support that discussion. And like Tegman was saying, it's yarning circles, so it's around the table, broken into small groups, talking about each of these topics. How do you define research? What's your involvement in research look like? What does community involvement look like? And is it okay to say no to research from the perspective of experiences? The flip side of that is the preferences. So again, this is with respect to the ARCHOs. What is needed to ensure self-determination with respect to research? What is needed to ensure leadership and research governance from a First Nations perspective? And what is needed to ensure self-determination in terms of values, aka ethics? And then again, what is needed to support self-determination in terms of ethics and governance? So as you're probably aware, these are different concepts. And though people might interchangeably use those words to describe similar or think that they're describing similar things, they're quite different. Research governance, ethics and ethics governance are different. And we wanted to give people the opportunity to explore that. Similarly, in the HREC's online sort of sessions, they were given the opportunity to talk about topics. How do you define this research? How do you as a HREC determine if a project is relevant to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people? What processes does your HREC use to review applications in terms of experience, in terms of preferences? What do you think is needed to realise self-determination in research? What is needed to ensure that values inform research? And what is needed to support Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander ethics governance? So results. So as we mentioned, these were 2 sets of yarning circles and some online surveys as well. In terms of the yarning circles with the ARCHOs, it was a 1-day workshop, 17 participants, and we discussed those 8 topics that I mentioned. We recorded the sessions as they occurred at each of the yarning circles, each of the tables. We transcribed those recordings and then we analysed those recordings and thematically clustered those transcripts together to identify core, main and sub-themes arising from the topics of discussion. From a HREC perspective, there were 2 online sessions, each comprising a total of 13 participants in total and representing an array of people from human research ethics committees across Queensland. It was a 2-hour session and broken up into 6 discussions about 6 topics, which I've mentioned previously. And again, those were transcribed, approximately 4 hours worth of recordings, plus Mentimeter polling that went on during the actual session, and again analysed to identify core, main and sub-themes across the spaces. So in terms of some of the preliminary results, what we tend to see is this is the ARCHO results as the Mentimeter. And what you can see, so ARCHOs compared to HRECs, I think the main important thing to see here is that actually they're very similar. We have similarity in terms of how important people considered these aspects and elements in regards to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander research. So you can see there that it responds to a community identified health concern, that it emphasises Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander ways of being, knowing, doing, focuses on a health concern of significance to people and communities, is led by an Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander person as the chief investigator. Researcher driven and community driven from the ARCHOs and again from the HREC. So you've got consistency in terms you can see which ones are fairly strongly agreed with. But you can see the one that is not necessarily strongly supported is the idea that it's researcher driven. In contrast, the trend seems to be that it needs to be community driven. In terms of saying okay to research, is it okay to say no to research? There was consistently, interestingly, this is the results from the ARCHO sector in the workshops that way. 11 out of 13 participants identified that yes, it is okay. 2 said sometimes, and it depends. In contrast, HREC said, unanimously, yes, it's absolutely okay to say no to research. But you can get a sense that people think that it is important that people have the right to choose. Now, this has been a concept that people have sort of touched on previously, and we think it's actually an important point to mention, which is the idea of people having the right to participate in all research. So the important thing here in this statement is this idea of all research. And should Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have the right to participate in all research? So you can see that very strongly everyone agrees that it is a right, a human right, for people to participate in research and have the opportunity to participate in research. From an ARCHO perspective, from a HREC perspective, similarly, same things. Finally, does Queensland need which is, I guess, the thing you're most interested in, what do people think about a Queensland Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Human Research Ethics Committee? Well, pretty much everyone was on the same page, which is it's something that's needed, but we also need to make sure that our existing structures are responsible and capable to be able to do things as well. And you can see that reflected across both ARCHOs and HRECs. All of this looks very pretty, and I expect you all to remember it. There will be a test later. No, but this is just to give you a sense of how we look at coding the themes arising from the qualitative research, and then theming that together to actually get a sense of what the core themes arising from the conversations is. This was an initial map which just has all of those things in. And I'll show you the subsequent more revised version. People reiterated a number of key components, and I'll reflect those in a moment. Community relationships, research on community terms, governance, capacity and capability of both ARCHOs and researchers and committees, integrity and values, and infrastructure. These were the main core themes, domains that arose out of what people said and what they iterated. And you can see some quotes there from the ARCHO sector in relation to those principles. Again, these were reflected by the HRECs, and you can see some quotes there from them. What it looks like at the end of the day as a bit of a mind map. These are the key domains for community-driven research and sovereignty, and the core theme obviously being community-driven research and sovereignty. Both ARCHOs and HREC participants identified the importance and the significance of community-driven research and sovereignty. For effective research to happen, it needs to align with community priorities and be culturally safe. Research should not be done for research's sake. A key sort of message that was reflected from both groups. As I mentioned, these are the key concepts arising in each of those spaces, relationships, supporting community and champions to develop, design and deliver research in partnership with researchers for community, working on community terms, together to co-design proposals that empower people for a real world impact, governance structures that respect community self-determination, sovereignty and data ownership, and that drive quality research, capacity and capability in terms of strengthening the workforce across both, the ARCHO sector, research sector, ethics, governance spaces, who will lead and inform future research that responds to community priorities, integrity and values that empower respectful research, that in turn values the contributions of community members, their leadership, knowledge and expertise, and then ultimately infrastructure, which satisfies obviously ethical requirements and informs a real world change. Recommendations very quickly. Obviously the results point to an appetite and interest in reform that supports strengthening research governance, ethics and ethics governance, a desire to align health and medical research with the needs of the sector and communities whom they serve, an opportunity to develop a Queensland research strategy to support that sector, to respond to and lead research, and a preference to resource the establishment of a Queensland Aboriginal and or Torres Strait Islander Human Research Ethics Committee under the auspices of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Community Controlled Health Sector. Sorry, that's an acronym misprint. That's us in a nutshell. And as I'd say, I would like to thank everyone here today, but I'd also like to pay my thanks to everyone who contributed to the conversations and the work that we've had the privilege to be involved in and support ourselves. And obviously for Quake, its leadership, the Lewitch Institute for its support and leadership in the space, and for everyone. Thank you.
Kia ora, and thank you so much. Once again, I'm really honoured to be part of this, to hear about this amazing work, and to see the dedication towards Indigenous voice coming into human research ethics. I think it'll make human research ethics stronger for everybody if we can bring more and more of the Indigenous ways of knowing into it. Again, we'll move straight on, though I think you can go into the chats and answer some of the questions, Greg and Tegwin. That was a really amazing presentation. Goodness, you have such great partners and such great logo presentations. And we'll move on to our next presentation. Sorry, I'm just